welcome back to my channel. My name is Traci, and today's video, I'm so excited. I'm gonna be doing an apartment series on my channel. It's gonna be a series of about 3 to 4, maybe 5 videos that are all about apartments in various ways. And today's video is about how to budget for moving out. So a little bit of a backstory on me. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18 years old. When I moved out, I went off to college, so I lived in a dorm with my roommate, and I lived in that dorm for the fall and spring semester. And then when summer came around, I was still doing classes online, but I moved back home with my parents for, summer, so about 2.5 months. And then my boyfriend and I moved into this apartment. So we've been here since August, and it's now February. And we've learned a lot just from mistakes that we made into moving into this apartment. And we also plan on moving in July to a different apartment. And we've been searching for apartments for the past 3 months now. So we've learned so much throughout this whole process, and I have a lot that I want to share with y'all. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first of all, a lot of these tips are either tips that I did to budget and save money for moving out, or tips that I wish I did and am now, gonna start doing now that I'm trying to move into a different apartment. So they are all very useful. They're all very important. And I hope that I'm able to help some of y'all today. Tip number 1 is to cherish the time that you have right now. Cherish the situation that you're in right now. If you're living with your parents, appreciate that. Appreciate the fact that you're not paying any rent right now, or, you might be paying very low rent. Appreciate the fact that you're not paying for utilities and phone bill and groceries and all this other stuff. Because yes, there are a lot of perks to moving out and living on your own, but there are a lot of downsides. One of which is the money aspect, paying rent and all these other expenses that really do add up, and it gets really expensive. So appreciate the time that you have now where you're not having to pay for those things, and make sure that you're taking advantage of the time that you have now. So tip number 2 is to set up an emergency savings fund. This is so important because when you're moving, there's so many different fees that could randomly come up. Like, for instance, when we moved in the middle of August. And if we had done our research, we would have known this ahead of time, but we had to pay rent the day we moved in. And then, our rent is due on the 1st. So 2 weeks later, I think it was a week and a half later, September 1st, we had to pay rent again. And I don't know why we weren't expecting that. We were a little bit dumb, just to say the least, but we kind of weren't expecting it, and it kind of threw us off. And if we had set up an emergency savings fund, we would have obviously been thrown back, but we would have been like, okay, we got this, it's totally fine. We planned for the unexpected, and now it's come, and now we just have to pay it. And of course, we did have money saved up. We obviously got past that time, but we didn't know about it, and I would have appreciated more if we had more of an emergency savings fund. My next tip is actually going to help y'all to figure out how to build that emergency savings fund. Tip number 3 is to start budgeting as if you had already moved into the apartment. So this requires a little bit of prior research to kind of figure out if you know the city that you want to live in or the area that you want to live in. Just kind of do a little Google search of how much apartment rent cost in that area, and then let's say it's $1,200. And if you plan on moving out on your own, then it's really good to start getting in the habit of that from now, and pay your mother or father $1,200 a month and have them keep it saved for you. And that can turn into your emergency savings fund. So it's really easy that way. But that way you get to experience how it feels to pay that $1,200 every month. And then if you start to realize, whoa, that amount is a little bit too much for me, then maybe you need to bring it down. And it's really good that you get to experience that, and you get to see what it feels like with a certain budget before you're forced to pay that. So this is a really good idea, and it will be a little bit hard because you're literally like putting aside whatever amount. I said $1,200 before, so let's stick with $1,200. So you're putting aside $1,200 a month that you just don't get to touch. But in the end, it's gonna help you so much, because like I said, it gets to kind of help you really discover what your budget rent is, what your maximum is. So if you realize $1,200 is too much, then you know you need to bring it down. And it also literally helps you save money. Like, you're putting away $1,200 every month for, let's say, 6 months. That's a lot of money that you now get to kind of spend on your apartment, with furnishing it, with the deposit and rent and all these kinds of things. You now have some money put away for that, and it's gonna help you out so much. Okay, so tip number 4 is to consider every expense that you may have moving into an apartment. So these expenses could include cable and internet, utilities, phone bill. If since you're moving out, you now need to cover that. Or even if you are already covering that, you definitely want to include that now that you're going to be paying a lot more money for other stuff. And then also parking. Some apartment complexes have carports that you can pay for. Some of them have parking garages that you have to pay for a parking spot. So definitely look into that and expect that. And then also groceries. If you're currently living at home and not paying for groceries can add up, especially since you should be cooking at home because that saves a lot of money. That grocery bill can definitely rack up. So make sure you're kind of planning for that too. And then also renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is really important. At a lot of apartment complexes, they are required, but even if they're not required, you should definitely take advantage of that. And it's pretty inexpensive. So tip number 5, I don't know, I think it's 5, is about furnishing your apartment. So it can be really expensive to furnish your apartment. Furniture is not cheap. Beds are not cheap. Couches, dining room tables, coffee tables, TV stands, none of those stuff are cheap. So a really good way to get those things a little bit cheaper is to buy them secondhand. You can do this a variety of ways nowadays, which is really, really cool. You can go on Craigslist, Let Go, OfferUp. You can use Facebook Marketplace. All these things are really good ways to get those staples that you need for your apartment, but just get them a little bit cheaper. And it's also cool because you can see something you like, and then you can go see it in person. And if you don't end up liking it, or if there's, it's not in good condition, you don't have to get that one. You can tell them no thank you, and you can keep looking. So it's a very, very good way to find those pieces that you want for your apartment that'll still match your aesthetic and get them a little bit cheaper. So definitely look into that. Tip number 6, I think, is to get roommates. This one is really, really important. And I know that some people just want to live on their own. And if you want to do that, that's fine. If you want to do that and you can afford that, go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with it. But getting roommates, whether that's 1, 2, 3 roommates, it can cut down the cost of rent and all the other utilities so much. I obviously have one roommate. I live with my boyfriend, so we cut everything in half. And it really, really saves us both a lot of money, And obviously, if you are getting a roommate, it's probably best to have that be someone that you trust and that you believe is going to, actually be able to pay the rent. Don't move in with your best friend that is always calling out of work and never has money and blah, 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 because chances are that's not going to change very much when you move into the apartment. So you want to move in with someone that can take care of their money and is trustworthy. So definitely keep that in mind when you are looking for a roommate, if you choose to do that. Tip number 7 is to not rush it. Do not rush through this time period that you're in right now. If you're living at home and you're thinking of moving out and you're trying to get your budget in line, which is probably why you're watching this video, don't rush. Take 6 months, take a year, take however long you feel is necessary to save up that money. it will literally make all the difference, and you'll be so grateful that you did it. Because if you're like, oh, I want to move out right now, and you thought about it a month ago and tomorrow you're moving out, chances are you'll be really, really struggling really, really quickly. But if you take your time, if you look for the right apartment, if you save up that money, your experience is just going to be that much better because you found that perfect apartment and you have your emergency savings fund, and you've already, you already paid your deposit and everything like that, and you still have money in your savings account and all that kind of stuff. It's just so much more worth it. Okay, and my next tip is more about looking at your income and seeing how much you can actually afford. This consists of actually sitting down and writing out a budget. And you need to take how much money you make in a month. So if you get paid bi-weekly, multiply that number by 2. If you get paid every week, multiply that number by 4, and look at how much money you make in a month, and then realistically how much of that can go to rent and you still having money to pay towards groceries and all these other things. A lot of people feel differently about what I'm about to say next. I feel like 50% is good. Some people think 30. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. So I personally think that if 50% of your money is going towards all of your monthly bills, so rent, utilities, and all that other kind of stuff, if 50% of your monthly income is going towards all those monthly bills, so not just rent, and then you still have the other 50% of your income to be groceries, whatever else you want to do with your money, then I think you're set. Some people think it should be 30% of your monthly income should be going towards your monthly bills, and then the rest is broken up differently. I think 50% is fine. That works for me. It may not work for other people. It depends what other kind of stuff you have to pay for in your life. Like if you have a car note and car insurance, then it probably needs to be more like 30% of your monthly income to go towards your utilities and rent, because you have other big stuff that you have to pay for. But if you're very minimal and you don't have a lot of stuff that you're paying for, then I think 50% is totally fine. It definitely can change from person to person. So look at your finances. You need to sit down and write down literally everything that you need to spend money on, or that you would need to spend money on when you move. Like, don't leave out anything. Don't leave out the Netflix that you're paying for, the Disney Plus. Don't leave out Spotify. You need every single little thing so that you can really make an accurate plan of how much money you can spend monthly on rent. I said that really weird, but you get what I'm saying. So that is actually all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want me to actually sit down and do an example budget for y'all of how I budget for myself and all those kinds of things, because I think that could definitely be helpful. Because even though I'm saying that you need to sit down and list everything that you're paying for, it might be helpful to see it. So let me know if that's something that you guys are interested in. But please give this video a thumbs up if you learned anything that could help you now or in the future. And definitely subscribe to my channel down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.